Hi guys, welcome back to ladensercrotchets. In this tutorial we're making this crochet beret. It's a very simple and easy to make hat. You're going to be done in no time, like in about 1 to 2 hours you'll be done with this one. That is if you're a fast crocheter. Now I made this beret for an adult in medium size. It can be worn by a small to medium, but if you want to adjust this to a smaller size or a bigger size, I'll be giving instructions for that. Subscribe if you're not subscribed, and let's get into the tutorial. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook, and then I'm using a medium weight yarn, but I'll be doubling my strands. So if you have a chunky yarn, then I'll recommend that you use the chunky instead of the medium weight. Then you'll need a pair of scissors, a darning needle, and some stitch markers. 1 or 2 will do. This is what I mean by doubling the strands. I'm getting one strand from one yarn and another strand from the other yarn, and I'm working with the two of them at the same time. We begin with a magic circle, and this is how I make my magic circle. I like this, put the hook through that gap, pull the longer side of the yarn, and unlike the slip knot, we do not fasten. So after putting your hook through and pulling up the yarn like this, you're going to chain 1. We're going to leave that space, that is the magic ring. That's where we're going to place our stitches. So after chaining 1, I'll chain 2 more for a total of 3, and then mark the 3rd chain. The chain on there, this is the 3rd chain right there, so I'll mark it. Then after that, I'm going to yarn over, put my hook through that ring, yarn over, pull up a loop so that we have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, then yarn over, pull through the remaining 2, and that's a double crochet. The chain 3 is going to act as our first double crochet, and that means we have 2 double crochets now. Then yarn over, place another double crochet into that ring for a total of 3. I think I marked the wrong place. This is where I should have marked, on the 3rd chain right there. Then chain 1 and place 3 double crochets into the same ring. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Again, you're going to chain 1, go into the same ring, place another 3 double crochets. Chain 1, place another 3 double crochets into the same ring. Again, chain 1 and place another 3 double crochets. So in total you should have 5 clusters of 3 double crochets each. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Once you've gotten the 5th one, you're going to pull this shorter end to close up that gap, close it up, and then you're going to chain 1. At the end, make sure that you chain 1 before completing the round. Then you're going to slip stitch onto the chain 3 that you did at the beginning. Remove the stitch marker, put your hook through the chain 3. I'll bring this shorter end up so that I can slip stitch with it up there. So pull a loop and pull through, and we are done with round 1. After the slip stitch, you're going to slip stitch again into the 2nd stitch, the 2nd double crochet right here. Do a slip stitch, then chain 3 at that point. Then in that stitch, we're going to place 2 more double crochets for a total of 3. Not 2, but 1, just one double crochet for a total of 2. I'm not working over this end, I'll weave it in later. Now you're going to need to mark your chain 3 so you know where you're going to slip stitch as you come to the end of this round. Then chain 1, skip to the chain 1 gap from the previous round and place 2 double crochets there. Chain 1. Now we are on the second 3 double crochet cluster, so you're going to count the first and the second, then you work on top of the second double crochet. On top of that second double crochet, place 2 double crochets. Then chain 1, work on the chain stitch right here, the chain that is in between the 3 double crochets clusters. So chain 2 double crochets right there. Next we're going to work on top of the double crochet, the second double crochet from the cluster that follows this one right here. So we have the first and the second. Into the second, place 2 double crochets. Next we work on the single crochet or on the chain, so 2 double crochets. Chain 1, work on top of the second double crochet in this cluster right here. So this is the first, this is the second, work on it, 2 double crochets. Skip over to the chain and work 2 double crochets. After chaining 1, chain 1, then work onto the chain. Chain 1, work on the second double crochet right here. Chain 1, work on the chain, work on the chain right here. Chain 1 and complete round 1 by slip stitching where the stitch marker is, that is on the chain 3 stitch. On top of the chain 3, do a slip stitch right there. So that means in round 2 we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10 clusters of 2 single crochets each, separated by a chain 1. Next we're going to slip stitch into the second stitch. We are going to begin round 3, so do a slip stitch onto the second stitch, do a slip stitch onto the chain, and then chain 3. I'll not need to continue marking because I know exactly where I'm supposed to slip stitch, but if you have trouble identifying that stitch, then I'll advise that you continue marking. So once we get to the chain stitch, we're going to place a double crochet there, then chain 1. And now we'll only be working in the chain 1 gaps. So we skip over to the next chain 1 gap, and in that gap we're going to do an increase, that is we're going to do 2 double crochets, and then we're going to chain 1, go back into the same gap and place another 2 double crochets. So we are making a shell, a V-stitch, or a 2 double crochet V-stitch like that. Then that's an increase. In the next gap we're only going to place 2 double crochets. In the gap that follows we're going to place an increase, that is 2 double crochets. Remember to chain 1 between the 2 double crochets. So chain 1, skip over to the next gap and place 2 double crochets. Chain 1, another 2 double crochets. Then we chain 1. In the next gap, 2 double crochets only, no increase. Chain 1. In the next one, an increase. So that means we start with no increase, increase, no increase, increase, and then alternate to the end. So that means in the last gap right here, we're going to have an increase. So the next one, next we chain 1 and work 2 double crochets in the next gap. And repeat the pattern to the end. I'm in the last gap where I've just done my increase, so I'm going to chain 1 and complete the third round by slip stitching on top of the chain 3 from the previous round. Do a slip stitch, then do a slip stitch onto the next stitch, do a slip stitch onto the chain 1 gap, chain 3, go back into that gap with 1 double crochet because the chain 3 is our first double crochet, chain 1. Now in this stitch where we increased from the previous round, we're going to increase again right there. So right here we're going to place 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Then chain 1 into this gap, 2 double crochets, chain 1 into the next gap, 2 double crochets, chain 1, and then that gets us to the increase, and right there we increase again. So we have 2 double crochets, chain 1, another 2 double crochets into the same chain 1 gap. Then chain 1 into this gap, just 2 double crochets, chain 1 into the gap that follows, 2 double crochets, chain 1. Next we have this gap where there's an increase, so we increase right there. Then we're going to repeat this to the end. So that means when we increase, we have 2 gaps with only 2 double crochets, increase, 2 of these, increase, 2 right, 2, 1, 2, increase, 1, 2, and repeat to the end. I'll meet you at the end. I'm at the end, and in the last gap I have 2 double crochets, and that will be 1, and this will make the second one. So I'm going to chain 1 and slip stitch on the chain 3 stitch to complete round, that's round 4. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, that's round 4. Then we're going to slip stitch onto the next double crochet, then slip stitch onto the chain 1 gap. When we get there, we're going to chain 3. This is round 5. Start with a double crochet into that same stitch, chain 1. We get onto the increase gap, and we increase right there with a double crochet, another double crochet, that's 2, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the same stitch. Then we're going to have 3 gaps in between, 1, 2, and 3, then increase, 1, 2, 3, increase, and we repeat to the end. So the next gap after chaining 1, we'll have 2 double crochets, then chain 1, 2 double crochets into the next gap, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the following gap, and those are 3 clusters of double crochets. Then we get to the increase part where we chain 1 and place 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 more double crochets, then chain 1 into the next gap, just 2 double crochets, and that's going to be 1, chain 1, then we're going to have 2, chain 1, 3, chain 1, increase at this part. Then repeat all the way around. I'll meet you at the end of round 5. At the end, you're going to have 2 clusters of 2 double crochets, but then the third one is the first one that we began with. So we slip stitch to complete round 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, we are in round 5. So to begin round 6, slip stitch onto the next double crochet, slip stitch onto the chain 1 gap, chain 3, go back into that stitch with a double crochet, chain 1, we get to the increase, and so we increase right there, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, then chain 1 into the next chain gap, 2 double crochets, only 2 of them. So in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4 gaps. So previously we had 3, now we have 4. The next row will have 5. I'll meet you in row 7 once I've done row 7. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Row 6 has 4 gaps, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Row 7 will have 5. I'll meet you once I've done row 7. So just repeat this pattern. You can clearly see where the increases are and where you're only placing 2 double crochets. So this is after the 7 rounds. If you want to work a smaller size, work up to 6 rounds. If you want to work a slightly bigger beret than this one, work the next round with an increase. But at this point, I have my desired size, and what we're going to do is just continue working rounds, except we're not going to be increasing. So that means we're going to slip stitch onto the next double crochet, slip stitch onto the chain 3, then work a double crochet right there to complete the 2 double crochets, chain 1. This gets us to the point where we're supposed to increase, but instead we're just going to work 2 double crochets, chain 1. Now skip over without increasing and work 2 double crochets into the next chain, chain 1, 2 double crochets next, chain 1, 2 double crochets into the next gap, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the gap that follows, chain 1, another 2 double crochets, chain 1, two double crochets. We're going to get to the increase round and we're going to chain 1, and in the increase gap we're just going to place 2 double crochets. Without increasing, chain 1, go to the next gap and do 2 double crochets, chain 1, work 2 double crochets into the next gap, and we're going to repeat this to the end. Whenever you get to the increase, do not increase, just continue working till you get to the last gap. Sorry about this, the power just went off and I just want to finish working this. I want to finish working this round, and then I'll wait for it to come back, then I'll continue later. So don't worry about the darkness in the video, but I hope you've gotten what we're doing in this round. I'm at the end of this round, and this is my round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, my round 8, which we are working with no increase. At the end, you slip stitch onto the chain 3 to complete the round. I haven't chained. You have to chain at the end before slip stitching. Chain, then slip stitch, then slip stitch onto the next double crochet, slip stitch onto the chain, and chain 3. Now at this point the beret starts curving in, as you can see. We're going to work 2 more rounds to make a total of 3 with no increase. If you have a lot of hair on your head and you want it covered, you can do up to 5 rounds with no increase. I'm going to do this round, the next round, and a third one, and then I'll be back after the 3 rounds with no increase. Then I'll show you what to do next. So you can do between 3 to 5 rounds depending on the size of your head and the volume of hair on your head. This is after the 3 rows with no increase, and next we're going to do a row of single crochets. So we begin by chaining 1, and we're going to work the single crochets in between the double crochet stitches. So like right here we have the 2 double crochets, so in between we place a single crochet, then a single crochet into the chain 1 gap, a single crochet in between the double crochets, another one in the chain 1 gap, in between the double crochet stitches, in the chain 1 gap, and we're going to repeat this all the way around. At the end, at the chain 1 gap, I'll place a single crochet, then I'll do a slip stitch onto the first single crochet that we've done to complete that round. That's our first round of single crochets, and this is what we have. Then we're going to do a row of reduction. To begin the row, chain 1 and work a single crochet into that first stitch. Then the next 2 stitches, we're going to work 2 single crochets, 1 single crochet, 2 together. That is, we combine the 2 stitches into 1. So insert your hook into the second stitch, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the third stitch and pull up a loop. Then you're going to have 3 loops, pull through all the 3. Then the next 2 stitches, we combine them together too. And then the next one will be 1 single crochet. So we're not reducing in that one. Then we reduce in the next 2. Reduce in the 2 that follow. And then the next one, no reduction, 1 single crochet. Then, so we put in 2 stitches together, then 2 more together, then 1 stitch. So we're going to have a reduction, then another reduction, and then 1 single crochet. And we're going to repeat this pattern to the end of the second row of single crochets. At the end, you're going to reduce in the last 2 stitches, then complete the round by slip stitching onto the first single crochet. And this should be able to fit on your head. Then we're going to work 3 more rows of single crochets, but we are not reducing. We are placing 1 single crochet on top of each single crochet. So chain 1, start in the first stitch with 1 single crochet, and then all the stitches place 1 single crochet into each of the stitches. And repeat this for a total of 3 rows. That means the single crochet rows will be 5. You're going to have a total of 5. They're actually rounds. You're going to have a total of 5 rounds of single crochets. So let me do my 3 rounds and I'll be back to show you what we're going to have. I'm coming to the end of the 5th round, and at the end I'll slip stitch onto the first single crochet, pull up a loop, then pull through, chain 1 and cut off the yarn. And at this point we are done. We only left with the weaving of the ends. Now this may look like it's too small, but then it stretches, so it will be able to fit an adult head. Now we're going to get the darning needle and weave this in. So once you're satisfied that the end is well hidden, you can cut off whatever remains. Then weave in the end in the middle. And there we have our beret complete. If you've enjoyed the tutorial, leave a like, a comment, and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and see you in the next tutorial.